Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Well, Tony, some people have gotten together and have a plan to save college athletics. So I'm doing great because everything is saved now. How are you?
I'm doing great because it is good to know that college football is going to be saved. Unfortunately, it's like we're going to save college football from itself, but it's then you're like, well, who's going to save it from you? And then it's just we're all saving each other, and then we've forgotten. Oh, we didn't have college football this year. We were too busy trying to save it. And so today's episode is about a new plan reported by The Athletic on Wednesday from a group calling themselves College Sports Tomorrow, which at least it's a basic thing. And it's not like the Super Alliance or the Super Friends or the Legion of Doom, something foreboding or anything like that. But basically, a group of legit sports executives with their idea of how to save college football. And at this point in time, it does need to be saved in terms of there needs to be a model moving forward that stops lawsuits. It just everybody comes to an agreement and everything gets fixed with the no more lawsuits, and then you move forward from there. But this one is essentially, to me, I see it as kind of a a mini NFL, but with more teams, but also a little European Soccer League. It's ideally it's 70 the existing 70 Power Five teams from this past season and SMU and Notre Dame, and then 10 teams from the other 50, 52 or 50 whatever programs that can be elevated, promoted to this, what would then be an 80 team league, 80 program league. And I think it's very interesting. We talked about this thing before, the relegation, although there's no relegation to promotion. It's a really neat idea, but as we've said here in the past, it would never happen barring something drastic because you have so many entities that would have to give up so much money that they're already promised that it's a non-starter. But we may be getting to a place where you're approaching that drastic need.
You are potentially getting to the place where everyone just says, let's get weird. And so the Overton window of acceptable possible solutions to problems widens a little bit or moves a little bit more in one direction than another. I was a little bit unclear. Is the promotion and relegation piece of this, does that just include the non-Power 5 teams, the non-current Power 5 teams, like those 10? Or is that like if Michigan goes 3-9 again, like they did in the Rich Rod, Michigan can get booted out of the top level of the sport? Were you clear on that?
Yeah, no, the 70 teams that start out in the top tier cannot be relegated. There is no, the only relegation comes from the bottom 50 that can be promoted into the top 80 or relegated out of it. So it gives everybody a chance to get in there, but you might lose it. Whereas Purdue is never going to lose their spot. Wake Forest is never going to lose their spot. Oregon State has earned their spots by just getting in under the wire, and they will never have a chance to lose it. And I think that's the way you would then keep teams from that. The relegation, the thing that was never going to allow relegation is because Ohio State is never going to give up its piece of the pie. And Indiana, why would we put ourselves on the precipice of being relegated? You're not, there's so many more programs close to being relegated that they would never actively you know what? I will take a few steps out onto this plank. It's fun. I'll get out onto this plank, and that way I can fight my way back onto the boat. And they're never going to allow that. So I think maybe this is just a happy medium. Like, look, we know you're never going to give it up. So we'll just offer these 10 spots to programs that have never had it, and we can have the relegation fun from the island of misfit toys.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone, the mid-tier CUSA teams and about half of the MAC. You guys can have the Hunger Games down there, and then we'll keep playing our whole thing over here. I mean, that at least makes the promotion relegation idea probably more feasible and
Mhm.
more saleable, because this is all driven by TV, because everything is driven by TV. And the last thing TV wants is for Michigan to get relegated out of the top level, or Ohio State to get relegated out of the top level and take all those eyeballs with them, because that would materially devalue the TV contracts. And this is all being driven by TV. So that at least makes it more, at least theoretically plausible to me that it could happen. The problem is it also makes it a lot less interesting. Like, sure, okay, Kent State and Western Michigan and Charlotte and Coastal Carolina are all going to be fighting to the death for the right to be the 75th team in this league. How exciting is that, really? I mean, I don't know that moves the needle all that much for me. And that's kind of the most interesting piece of this
Mhm.
proposal, because I think realistically there's a bunch of different proposals out there. I don't, the whole point of this is, well, it's silly to pretend that we're all playing the same sport at the same level, because Louisiana Monroe or Charlotte or whoever, pick whatever team you want to pick, Nevada, are playing. It's silly to pretend that those teams are playing the sport at the same level as Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. The division is not between Power Five and Group of Five. The division is really the top level of the Power Five, and there's after that there's just kind of a broad spectrum of the teams that are in the mid to bottom of the ACC, or the middle to bottom of the Big 12. There's not that much of a difference between those teams and the top of the Group of Five. It's a
Mm.
real spectrum there. And to me, if I'm looking at the future of the sport and where the dividing line is, I think, we'll talk about this in terms of a golf tournament. Like, the cut line is way higher than 70. To me, I think you're looking at 30, 40 teams, where there's to say that Utah State is playing the same sport as Ohio State is, like, technically true, but really not true at all. So I don't think this is something where you're gonna see those teams really continue to be. I don't think this division is gonna be as big as this proposal says.
Well, and you also have like, what would Liberty or East Carolina be with Indiana's resources? I think
Mm.
they would pretty good chance they would be better than Indiana or Kansas State's resources, where they are. Liberty has been doing pretty good, or Memphis, where they're around that same range with some of these teams that are the lower Power Five. But if you gave them those resources, would they suddenly become mid-tier Power Five? And so this promotion would maybe give them an opportunity to do that, and there will be some there would be some playoff that is incorporate all of this. And I guess at in this theory, in this idea, it's not a theory; it's just a proposal, and um, it would be essentially 8 divisions of 10 teams, and every division winner would make the playoffs, and there would probably be some wild cards as well. So everybody would have an opportunity to make the playoffs. I think there's a lot of interesting aspects to it, but I'm with you. It's like it's a very large thing, and is that um, is that good? I guess you need the size because of the inventory. If you're going to charge, if in theory you're going to make more money than God only knows, make more money than all of the conferences have combined, you need to have a lot of games to broadcast. So I don't know if 32 teams of the top 32 teams in college football is enough. And I know we'll talk about well, look what the NFL is doing, and like I guess Roger Goodell's right hand man is part of this CST. College football is incredibly popular. It is not the NFL in terms of Nothing is the NFL in terms of popularity. So to compare, like, boy, we could if the NFL got this, we could get this. I think you need to calm down and just be like, college football has gotten this to this point. What makes you think you can get more down the road doing something vastly different?
Well, I think everyone's looking at the TV revenue, which has just been line go up for basically as long as anyone can remember. And anyone locking themselves into a long-term deal like the ACC did is idiotic because line go up. And it's just the stonks meme, basically, where it's just smiling guy with his arms folded and line go up. And that's just how it's going to be forever. It's like, I don't know that that is how it's going to be forever because the TV business is changing quite a bit, and it has changed quite a bit over the last 10 years. And the idea that you brought teams into the Big Ten 10 years ago based on cable TV households in their state is like, boy, that was a very short-sighted view on what was going to be important very soon in media and college sports. So I think the idea that the line is just going to go up forever is probably not really going to be borne out by the realities on the ground. There are a million factors that go into that, and that can be, what is the advertising market like? What is the economy like? What is, what is the future of technology? Like, are people going to get sick of paying for, we used to pay the cable company one big high price and it was like, this is stupid. I'm paying them too much money. And now you're paying money to 17 different companies because, well, one time they streamed an Ohio State football game on this streaming service. And then, well, my wife likes to watch this show on this streaming service. And well, my kids like this show on this streaming service. And then you're paying 17 different companies and somehow it's like $5 more than it used to be for the one bundled thing. So, what is the future of that? Because even the big streaming platforms are losing a ton of money right now. And, if you said, how confident are you that certain major streaming platforms are going to be operating exactly as they have been and, on their current business model 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I would have a very low level of confidence that I'd be able to tell you which ones are going to keep going, which ones are going to merge, which ones might just go away completely. There's a lot of variables here that make line go up just in perpetuity probably not a great basis for, building your whole model around. And it seems like they've kind of done that.
Well, you're even seeing what ESPN and Fox talking about merging in terms of the sports streaming platform, where I guess you're trying to be able to control the market even more. And this CST would try to do the same in terms of being like the sole entity that would negotiate the television deal for all essentially 80 teams in the league. And reminds me of way back when the NCAA was the sole negotiating deal for the television programs. And I don't know, was it Texas A&M or Oklahoma?
NCAA, I'm going to do this off the top of my head, so I might be a year or two off, but it was NCAA versus Oklahoma Board of Regents in about 1984. And the idea was the NCAA just had everything. NCAA just controlled all the TV rights, and you could only have one game on TV a year. And it was, you had all these restrictions, and there was just one TV package. And so you would just get like 1 or 2 football games a weekend because the important thing was you had to get people to keep coming out to the stadium because the TV revenue, Tony, didn't matter at all. It was all about the ticket revenue and the gate revenue and all that stuff. And so the NCAA got sued. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in the case of NCAA versus Oklahoma Board of Regents, and this is all sort of citation needed.
Yeah.
But the Supreme Court basically said, no, that's stupid. TV, individual schools can control their own TV rights. That led to individual conferences having their own TV deals. In some cases with some of the third tier rights, like the Longhorn Network, the school had its own thing. And Oklahoma had all those pay-per-view games where you got to watch someone's feet. And so they were live streaming it and all that kind of stuff. The old Jefferson Pilot games, all that stuff. That all changed in the late 80s, early 90s. And then you got into the conference TV networks in the mid 2000s, the Big Ten Network launching in 2007 and all that kind of stuff. And that has all kind of ballooned and led to this current situation, this current system. The question is, could you, I think there's concerns that, hey, we're gonna stuff all of the stuff back in the hat. We're gonna just shove it all in the closet and close the door, and we're just gonna go back to the old thing that the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. I think there are people that would have some questions about whether that would hold up as a business model.
Yeah, the argument that, for one, the networks aren't going to want to give up their current deals. And part of the Athletic article has quotes somebody saying, well, the networks would kind of have to agree to move forward in this way. And good luck with that. But then you just, you're banking on nobody like Oklahoma or Florida State or Texas wanting more money than Oklahoma State shouldn't be getting this much, where you've got what we've seen in the past where some schools believe they should get more, so they want more, and you can't have they can't all come to an agreement. And so you're asking these schools basically to hand over their power, which they've been fighting like heck to get back. So I think there's some really good ideas. I just don't know how feasible it is. And that's with the understanding that needs to happen. Something will happen. And this is kind of a proactive type of thing. But this may be, I don't know, 20 years in the future or 40 years in the past. And I don't know that you need to revisit something that was essentially the impetus for where we are now. Like, is this repeating history or not forgetting history doomed to repeat it?
Well, I think it's either forgetting history doomed to repeat it, or it's I need you to show me your work. Like show me the on the paper like where all these numbers work
Yeah.
out. And you know, it feels like either you're asking everyone to go completely do a 180 and go backwards, like you said, 40 years, where okay, we're all going to get the same amount of money, and you know, and the big schools are not going to want more than everyone else, or you're just going to maintain the status quo of the big schools having all of the money and the little schools having very little money, and you're not actually really doing anything to materially change the dynamic of the sport. And based on the way the SEC and the Big Ten have basically been playing hungry hippos with every single TV deal and every single college football playoff berth that they can, it doesn't feel like everyone wants to, that the sport is in a place right now where everyone's in the mood to hold hands and sing kumbaya and we're all going to split the pie evenly. So you're probably just going to be looking at a thing where, are we splitting this up? And it's just, well, now Alabama and Auburn are in one division, and Texas A&M and Texas are in a different division. And Alabama and Auburn, well, they're going to be in a division with Troy and with Wake Forest, and like you're potentially giving up. Either you're keeping the sport largely the same and just dividing it a little bit, and you're going to have the much lesser conference divisions or whatever, or you're going to have tradition get completely shot out the window for that much. And with the way the SEC and the Big Ten have been, trying to gobble up every possible college football playoff berth, guaranteed in whatever version of the playoff we're talking about at that moment, I don't think the SEC is going to be cool with dividing it up. And it's like all the SEC teams, well, they're just in two divisions, and so they're guaranteed two spots. And the mixture of Conference USA and the Sun Belt and the AAC, well, they're going to get one spot, and the Mountain West and the remnants of the Pac-12 and someone else, well, they're going to get one spot. That doesn't feel like it's viable. It feels like you can just kind of look at, how are you going to solve this problem? Well, there's three possible solutions, and you can look at those and go, well, that's not going to work for this reason. That's not going to work for this reason. And that's not going to work for this reason. And it's like, well, how much time did you guys spend on this? And how much money did you spend on this? Because it feels like you're leaving a lot of questions that are like pretty glaring and pretty unanswered.
Yeah, well, one of the solutions, Tom, is that they would get rid of conferences entirely. So you wouldn't have to worry about the SEC or the Big Ten trying to wield their power because they would go away. So, and one thing we know is they're very likely to just do that. But the divisions then I would assume would be geographical, and you would essentially keep the conferences, but get rid of the conferences in terms of like strip them of their power, which again, not likely to happen. One of the other aspects of this is the lawsuits coming to the NCAA from all corners. So who even knows what is going to be left of the NCAA when this is all done? Because we're talking about class action lawsuits in the billions for usage of NIL forever, basically, or at least 110 years or however far back they're going to go. So one of the reasons the SEC and Big Ten have gotten together is to try to maybe negotiate some sort of a settlement, basically, in terms of, okay, we're not going to pay $2 billion for whatever, whatever, but how does 700 million sound? And you go that way, and then you start to progress and move forward, because I think there are going to be so many baby steps, and this CST proposal is like a tectonic plate shifting from one side of the globe to another, as opposed to like, a couple of juts, and then you finally get where you are. Well, when we talked to Ross Bjork when he was hired, he said, I want to be settled. I want to get to that point where we're settled in 5 years. I don't think this happens in 5 years. I think there are basically, if you look at the TV contracts, and we can run through those real quick. Big Ten runs through the 2030 season. Big 12 goes a year after that. SEC's deal ends in 2033, 2034. So that's 10 years out. And good luck to is the Big Ten the next deal that they do? Do they do a 5-year deal? Because we've talked about before, whatever this next step is, you'll know kind of that it's happening when the Big Ten is like, okay, we'll go for a 5-year deal. And then the Big 12 the next year is like, we'll do a 4-year deal. That way everybody's deal ends at the same time. But then you're still, I can't see them all coming together collectively as conferences to negotiate when, as you said, the hungry hippos are actively telling the other conferences, you're either with us or you're against us.
I think the idea that you're going to eliminate conferences and those historical ties, and you're still going to let everyone continue to be a member of the club, is that feels kind of contradictory, because it's like, why is Vanderbilt still getting paid more than Florida State or Clemson in their TV deal? And it's like, well, because we were friends with the right people 100 years ago when we formed this club, and you can't kick us out because we're a member of this club. And so now you're going to get rid of the club, but Vanderbilt's still going to be at the highest level of the sport. And you can apply that for even more ridiculous examples like Rutgers and Maryland, where, sorry, how did you get in here? And it's like, well, Jim Delaney wanted a $20 million bonus, so we made a really short-sighted decision based on cable TV households about 10 years ago. And anyway, yada, 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 here I am. And, Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State have got to be looking at Rutgers and Maryland and going, oh, yeah, we're gonna get rid of the conference, but you stay here because we love hanging out with you guys. You guys bake the best cookies. We can't have meetings without you, no matter what conference we're in. Like, I just don't see it. I look at 10 years out, and whether it's 10 years out or 12 years out, I think the ACC deal expires in 2035 or 2036, one of those, and there's been lots of discourse online about the likelihood of the ACC deal lasting until that point. But whenever the ACC deal expires, and whenever all these deals expire, it just seems very unlikely to me that you're going to restructure the sport. If you were going to do this from first principles, you're just going to do this from square one, and you're going to design the sport. Does Rutgers play in the same? Are we pretending that Rutgers is playing the same sport at the same level as Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State or Alabama or Georgia? I don't think if you were starting from square one that you would do it that way. I think you'd look at what is the top level of the sport, and the teams that play at this level are going to be at this level. I think that's a much more likely scenario than, well, we're going to redesign the sport, but we're going to keep all of these like ties that are somewhere between 2 years and 100 years. And we're going to maintain all of those, and everyone who's in the club is still in the club. And, a few of you guys who are, kind of standing at the velvet rope outside, the bouncer will let a few of you guys in if you're dressed well enough. Everyone else has to stay outside. That just doesn't feel to me like the most likely way this all gets sorted out, whenever it gets sorted out.
And so right now there are basically 3 competing factions, thoughts. You've got this one. You've got Charlie Baker's plan the NCAA president, to bring NIL in-house to the schools, and the $30,000 per year for half of the athletes. And these three things, I've kind of view it like, I view the CST like the XFL, where they've got some interesting things. Maybe bring some of those ideas in. The NFL has done that with the kickoff rule, the XFL's kickoff rule. So I think there are things where you can Frankenstein the new college football from these body parts. But one thing we've learned over the years is college football does not like, college sports don't like big changes. And when there are big changes, they still try to change as little as possible within those changes. Like NIL has been huge. Has it really changed the game in what we see? I don't think so. It's just the players are moving more freely. So this will be the next step, and they will try to keep it, I think, as familiar as it has always been. And to me, that means conferences. That means you keep your history, because history is one of the things that college football has over so many other sports. And that familiarity where you know what to expect. It's not a different game. It's not a different conference. It's not an unfamiliar thing where you've kind of like, you know what, I've lost my love of it. And some people have had that happen. They say they've had that happen with NIL. I think with college football, as I always say, it's you're getting new blood in there every single year. To me, that's the most fascinating part about it, is the refreshing of it. And if you can fix the issues, take care of all of these lawsuits, and still have something that is pretty familiar, while also being if you squint, it sure looks a lot like the NFL. I think there's a happy medium in there somewhere, because it is still, you have a different team every single year. And that's not the case in the NFL, where I think that's always going to be the special thing about college football, is the new people that come in, the fact that you lose your quarterback every couple of years, every year, and things change. It's fresh every single time, until maybe somebody sues and says, why can't I play for 6 years? Something like that.
I do have questions about how much whatever this is going to be, whatever negotiated settlement they have, is really going to solve whatever problem forever, and there will never be another lawsuit. Life in America has taught me there can always be another lawsuit. Anyone can sue anything for anything, anytime. That's just kind of how the system works. And sometimes it gets thrown out right away, and sometimes it doesn't. But I don't know that I really buy they're going to have something that solves the problem forever. One other thing that I thought was really interesting was Matt Fortuna, who used to work for The Athletic, and now he does the Inside Zone. He had a tweet where he listed where all of the commissioners of all of the power conferences and the large basketball conferences are from. The new AAC commissioner is a native of New Jersey. The Atlantic 10 commissioner is a native of New Jersey. The Big East commissioner is a native of New Jersey. The Big 10 commissioner is a native of New York. The Big 12 commissioner is a native of New Jersey. The SEC commissioner is a native of New York. And it's really interesting to me that you're looking at, this is trending towards an NFL model. As someone who grew up in the New York, New Jersey, greater tri-state area, I can tell you college football is an incredible afterthought there. It's the Giants, it's Jets, it's the Eagles, it's the Patriots. It's no one's paying attention to Rutgers or UConn or Boston College or Army. It is a very NFL area. So these are all people who grew up in a very NFL area, probably not, really embracing all of the traditions of college football and all that kind of stuff, and the historical rivalries and the regional nature of the sport and all the stuff that makes it great. It's interesting to me that you have all these people from this one area of the country where there's very little investment in college football as a sport, emotionally as a region. And these are all the people who are now running it and making a lot of, how can I squeeze 17 extra cents out of this, rather than worrying about some of the traditional stuff. It's just I saw that on Wednesday, I think, this week, and thought, I didn't realize that was that true to that degree, but you see it and it's kind of like, huh, some of this stuff is making a little more sense now.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, I'm just thinking about the Pace salsa commercial where the guys are all sitting around the fire and then it's like talking about where the salsa came from. It's New York City. And that's all of us at college football as you're talking about these disgusting people from the East Coast. And it's like, my college football is full of New York City. It's made in New York City. Are you crazy? That is concerning because they see it as a commodity. They don't see it as family. Like part of your lineage, basically, as a lot of people that has made college football what it is. It's something you pass down and you live with and experience. It's not something you're trying to, well, where can we get another commercial in? And why don't we have patches on the jerseys? And so, um, the, the lawsuits and all of that. One last thing, I think it was ESPN article I was reading talked about how the government has said, we will help you. We will not save you. And I think that's an interesting thing where you do the hard work and then we can come in with, some whatever antitrust or, any type of thing to help you. We're not going to say this is all okay because we don't think it is. And the Supreme Court has already come down and said, anybody wants to bring anything to us about this, we're probably going to side on the players and against the university. So hop on board if you want in. And we've seen plenty of class action lawsuits that will eventually have to be dealt with in one form or fashion. And as you said, something new will pop up and, you just try as good as you can to get something that is legally acceptable and politically acceptable. Len Perna, the CEO or whomever with the Turnkey ZRG, which is the search firm that connects all college commissioners to these conferences, probably based in New York City, Tom, but said the only way to solve the problem is to have a solution that is legally defensible, politically acceptable, commercially prudent, and is able to strike a partnership with student athletes in a way that's really good for them. And that's all you got to do. I mean, it's not a tall order. You've just got to, it's basically Red Panda with 1,000 bulls on a 1,000-foot unicycle, in lava. Good luck.
I got to tell you, if there's anyone on the planet who I believe could pull that off, it is definitely Red Panda. As you were talking about salsa and where things come from, I was compelled to Google, where is Rotel manufactured? Tony, I'm delighted to inform you that Elsa, about 5 miles north of the U.S.-Mexico border in the Rio Grande Valley in Texas, is where Rotel was originally manufactured. So there you go. Most college football salsa, Rotel, Big Ten Network original, true to the origins of the sport.
OG Rotel. And on that note, Tom, let's go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank you all, as always, for tuning in. And if you have not yet hit the thumbs up, I should have mentioned it earlier. If you're watching on YouTube, please do so. And if you did it earlier, thank you for doing that. And you can always find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member. It is the best way to support what we do. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.